Years ago, when Derrick Baskin arrived at Newark Airport on a one-way flight, he made it to Manhattan by simply following the crowd. Some guesswork and a bus ticket brought him to Grand Central Station. That no-regrets journey landed him roles in the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, The Little Mermaid, and Memphis. Instead of following the crowd, Baskin is now bringing crowds to their feet as Temptations frontman Otis Williams in the buzzy new Broadway musical Ain't Too Proud. Watch Baskin discuss going from working at TGI Fridays to getting ready 8 times a week in Hugh Jackman's dressing room on this week's Show People. Welcome, Derrick.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How
man.
are you?
I'm great. I'm better now seeing you.
Aw, thank you. That's sweet. That's sweet. You look good on the set, by the way.
Thank you. I'm glad I kind of color coordinated it.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, welcome back to Broadway.
Man, it's been a while. It's been about 6-7 years.
There was a period of time where you were always on Broadway. I feel like any night of the week I could have gone and seen Derrick Baskin in a hit musical.
It's true.
And then you disappeared.
It's true. It was scary when I disappeared.
And now you're back, and you're in a big fat hit. And how's life?
Man, life is really good right now. This show, it has brought joy for doing musical theater back into my life. And so I'm really having the best time. I really, really am.
Well, you can tell, and audiences are having. I mean, this is one of those shows that is like they make like the term crowd pleaser for something like this.
Oh,
audiences
totally.
lose their minds.
Yeah.
And Ain't Too Proud.
Yeah, well, half of the audience that actually more than half the audience has grown up with Temptations music.
Right.
And so part of our show is a lot of times we go in and out. I go in and out specifically, talking to the audience and then going into performance mode. So I'm talking to you like present day, and then I'll go back into the 50s and the 60s when we're doing a concert. So a lot of times people are reacting like they're at a concert, you know, and so every day it's really rowdy, man.
I think I discovered Motown because I remember seeing the Motown anniversary special when I was a kid.
Okay.
On TV, the 25th anniversary, I think,
Yeah.
of Motown, and then I remember going back and rediscovering, and I got so hooked on it.
Yeah.
Because this music, you can't beat it.
You really can't, it's just timeless. And
Yeah.
no matter, where you come from, no matter what you do, this music, some song that they've sung, it relates to your life. And you will remember, the first love you had or some breakup you had. It's usually a Temptations music or a Motown song. And Motown, they put out some big hits, man. They really did, and a lot of hits. Yeah.
But this is definitely, I think Laura Benanti said this in our spring preview, this is a dad musical too. Like the dads.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's for everybody, but I sat next to some dads in the audience when I saw it out in LA. It really does something to them.
It's kind of hard to bring guys who don't really care for musicals to a musical.
Right.
And so I said, a guy's guy.
Yeah.
This show, it kind of, cause it talks about brotherhood. So, you think about your friendships. If you are a father, you think about your kids. And so this show kind of gravitates towards people who typically don't see musical theater, but it also gravitates toward people who love musical theater. So we get both of them. But at the stage door, I get a lot of dads saying, hey man, I'm not into musicals, but this one, thank you for this musical. It's really cool.
There was another show that was like that. It was called Jersey Boys.
Yeah.
And you are dealing with the same creative team.
Yeah.
So you have Des McAnuff, your director, and Sergio Trujillo, choreographer.
Yeah.
They created Jersey Boys and a bunch of other great musicals. So it's kind of tapping into something similar.
Yeah, I think so. They have their way of doing things, and what they did specifically with this show, they added a really good book writer. Her name is Dominique Morris, so she's from Detroit. So you add their style, and they're very... a
real playwright.
Yeah.
Like a real known for her plays.
Absolutely. This is actually her first musical. She writes plays. She wrote on this TV show called Shameless. And so, the way she writes is not the way you would write a typical musical. So that coupled with what Des and Sergio bring to, they add this polish to shine. Sergio's really good with transitions and movement and all that stuff. And Des is just a wonderful director to work with. And so their style coupled with her style kind of gives you a kind of just a different, if you want to, I don't really call it a jukebox musical, but it is a jukebox musical. But it just gives you a different formula. We work our formula, we will have like one song and we'll weave like 3 or 4 scenes in it, which is typically not what you do with a musical. You know, you have a scene that sets up the song, and we don't do that. It's kind of cinematic in that sense, which is really cool.
Yeah, that Broadway gloss that Des and Sergio bring to a show, man. It is like addictive. Sometimes I'll see shows and I'll be like, God, I wish this had that Des Sergio thing happening. Because when as an audience member, it's just like polish. And you're right, it's very cinematic.
They both have a really good job of polishing an entire scene, but a slight focus will be on this one little section, and you don't know why you're looking at this particular person, this particular lady that's in yellow. In our instance, and everyone else is in a different color, and it's a very subtle thing, and they have a very good, they do a really good job of focusing your attention to where the story should be, which is really, really good.
I think the other thing that's fantastic about this show is the story. I mean, the story itself is really interesting. So let's talk about Otis Williams. You play Otis Williams.
I do.
Otis is the last surviving member of the original.
He is.
So you've met him?
I have several times. We affectionately call him Uncle O.
Uncle O.
Yeah, he'll call
Well, he's also
us,
called Big Daddy, isn't he? He's not like a known nickname.
I mean, I can't call him that, but that's not really how I'm going to call him. But yeah, Big Daddy is one of them as well.
So let's talk about him. So he actually founded the Temptations.
Yeah.
He started this whole thing.
Yeah. You know, he had another group. It was called Otis Williams in the Distance.
Right.
And that kind of fell apart. But he and another guy from that same group kind of found the other guys in other groups, and they kind of pieced them together to form this like ridiculous group.
You know, there's Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons. It very easily could have been Otis Williams and the Temptations.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. But I think his vision for the Temptations, you know, he's just such a humble person, and he knew that if it was anyone's name above the title, that it wouldn't be as successful. You know, if it were Otis Williams and the Temptations, you know, you would focus on Otis Williams, and he wanted you to focus on the group. For him, it was always about the group, and the group knew that he was a leader. So I asked him about it. I was like, why wasn't it Otis Williams and the Temptations? Right. He was like, we were just all equal. We all got paid the same, so I didn't need that. He didn't need to be known as the leader of the group.
But what's interesting about this story is really how many Temptations there are. Because especially in Act 2, you really start seeing, because the group, the name was the name. And Otis was always there, and he's still, does he still perform with the Temptations?
Still, every performance.
There's a batch of Temptations doing concerts.
Absolutely.
And Otis is up there.
He is up there right in the center.
And you've seen him perform?
Yeah. We've seen him in California twice. In Westchester, we saw him. My parents just saw him down in Virginia.
Wow.
Every time I can catch them, you know.
Your parents have a VIP pass at a Temptations
concert.
Oh, they
do now. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
You hooked them up.
Someone. Yeah, I'm the best son in the world now.
All right, we're going to talk more about Ain't Too Proud with Derrick Baskin after this break. Back with Derrick Baskin, back on Broadway.
Back on Broadway.
Ain't Too Proud, the life and times of the Temptations.
That's a pretty long.
I love a long title.
It's a pretty long title.
I love a colon in a title. I love all that. It's a good title. I like it. I love the poster, and I love seeing you guys. I mean, we did a photo shoot with you guys. You guys are so fun together.
The way it came together, our energies kind of just linked up. And it had happened really fast. You know, like sometimes it happens, it takes a while for you to warm up to someone. It takes a while to like kind of find that rhythm. And we fell into this friendship, this camaraderie very, very fast, which made it easier to just like dive into the work, you know. And so we were able to dive into this work faster because we had this connection that just, it honestly, it came out of nowhere. Yeah.
I want to talk about how you first got into this and how you fell in love with performing, and I want to hear about little Derrick. I've seen photos of him on your Instagram. He was cute, cute little kid.
His big ears.
In Germany.
Yeah.
Right. So talk about this. How did you end up spending part of your childhood in Germany?
So my father, he is in the Air Force. Well, he's retired now. He and my mother live in Virginia. When I lived with them, he was in the Air Force, and we bounced around a lot. So I was born in North Carolina, then bounced to Illinois, went to Germany. Germany was 1st to 3rd grade. Back to Illinois, and then I went to high school in Japan.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and throughout all that traveling, I had more and more siblings added to the family. So I'm the oldest of 6.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So their siblings made in different countries and different
Yeah,
homes. And
I have a brother and a sister that were born in Germany.
wow.
Yeah, so they have those dual citizenship thing going for them.
Huh. So what do you think what did that do for you, the moving around? I mean, a lot of times you hear adults sort of talk about that made it harder for them, or maybe made them more social and made them more able to sort of drop into a situation. And
I think that it just made it's so interesting how life kind of prepares you for, what you become eventually. And I didn't necessarily want to be an actor. I never really wanted to move to New York or do Broadway, but the moving around kind of made when I came to New York so much easier, because I've been introduced to different cultures, different ways of thinking. The military is a very diverse background, so you won't have like all white population or all black population or all whatever. So moving to New York, honestly calms me down, because I didn't know what I was gonna come into when I moved here. When I literally landed in Midtown, I was like, this feels right, because I'm used to different people growing up with different cultures. I'm just used to that. And so it kind of prepared me, moving around, bouncing around a lot, to do what I do. Because even as actors, you do a show, especially when you're starting, you do summer stock, So I worked in
gypsy life.
Yeah, I moved to New York, but I didn't live in New York for the first few years.
Right.
I was in Weston Playhouse in Vermont, or I worked in Utah, Pioneer Theater in Utah.
What were you performing in these places?
What
performances did I miss?
Well, I mean, I did Ragtime and Weston Playhouse, and I also did Smokey Joe's and Weston. I did those 2 different summers, and then at the Pioneer Theater in Utah, I did Smokey Joe's again.
Oh, see that? You get in the Smokey Joe's rhythm.
Yeah, Smokey Joe's was like my first, I have a credit.
You can do Smokey Joe's every summer if you want.
I could. Luckily, it's like you don't have to be young or old to do that when I can still move. So
were you performing at all in Germany or Japan as a kid? Were you getting into it as a kid?
I grew up in church, so I was always singing, right? But in school, I played an instrument. I played trombone, so I was a band geek. And then also ran track, but my love was always music. My love was always like orchestra. Okay. So I never did any acting. Okay. But I also always sang in choir, and I always had band going for me.
And you were a geek. I mean, you are a geek. It sounds like.
Oh man, I'm just
like a brainiac.
Yeah.
And you almost went to med school.
Yeah, I took my MCATs and all that stuff.
So let's talk about that. So
all right.
That sounds like a fork in the road moment.
It is.
So talk about what happened and how you ended up being a Broadway star.
All right, yeah.
Look at that. It worked out.
I'm thankfully
4 Broadway shows.
Yeah, it's not a bad outcome for it. So I went to school at Hampton University, about a half hour from Virginia Beach, and after I got my degree, I moved in with my grandfather, who lives in St. Louis, my dad's dad, and I was applying for medical schools and graduate schools, and I just, once you do that, that's it, and I didn't want to have any regrets in my life. I shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I like to live my life not having those. And so I was like, is there anything you want to do? Because once you do this, that's it. And I've always wanted to maybe sing jingles in commercials and do stuff like that. And I was like, well, you can't really do that here in New York. Here in St. Louis. So
right.
Where do you go to do that? And I was like, New York. And I was like, all right, let's just go. And so I didn't know.
So you weren't doing musicals at this point?
No.
You just had a dream of a jingle.
A jingle? I just wanted to sing jingles in commercials.
Okay, you just wanted to do a jingle.
That's it. That's all. I was like, if we do that, my life would have been made if I just sing jingles for the rest of my life.
So I'm going to go to New York.
Yeah.
And you asked for talk about the one-way ticket.
Yeah.
So I love this.
So I'm looking up flights, and at that time, I think I was looking at the Yellow Pages, looking up flights and stuff. And so
You're not that old.
I'm not that old, but I wasn't that savvy. So I was just like, I'll just get the Yellow Pages and see what happens. And so I'm calling different, airlines or whatever. And I think I flew here on Continental.
Okay.
And so I was like, I need a one-way ticket, to the city. And they were like, all right, why don't you just get a round trip? It's cheaper. I was like, no, I've decided we're going to New York. Give me a one-way ticket. Yeah, I'm making a point. I'm making a stand. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I stayed at the Y for a couple of weeks and was terrified to kind of leave Midtown Manhattan for a while, but I had to because I couldn't afford to stay there. So I moved out way out in Brooklyn, last stop on the L train. And then I got a job waiting tables at TGI Fridays.
Which you were like a TGI Fridays. Aren't you like you were a veteran of TGI Fridays?
I was.
At that
so
point.
What I did was I worked downtown TGI Fridays in St. Louis.
Right.
I had them call.
Yeah, you got a hookup.
Yeah, and I got the hookup, and so I got a transfer.
You're like, I already got the suspenders and the buttons. Did you bring your buttons with you?
I brought everything because I was like, listen, I had lit up my suspenders, man. I had so many buttons, I had to show them things off. I was like, you guys got a good waiter here. You know what I mean? So they're like, all right, we see you got your little buttons.
And didn't you work at TGI Fridays like a block from where we are right now?
It's literally a block away from
literally
you guys.
right over there.
Right
in Times Square.
Right there. It's ridiculous. I worked there for a few months. Yeah.
And you go in there and tell everyone, like, I used to work here and now I'm the star. Ain't too proud. It can work out for all of you.
Could you imagine if I went in there, they would be like, get out of here, man.
And isn't it like $24 wings and mozzarella sticks?
Oh, yeah. Well,
I mean, it's tourist prices.
New York City prices are
New
no
York
joke.
City, heart of New York.
You're going to pay for them wings. You're going to do that.
Oh, man, it worked out for you from TGI Fridays to the Imperial Theater.
Yeah.
By the way, how's the Imperial Theater? That's like one of the fanciest theaters on Broadway.
Yeah, they have a history, knock on wood, of having...
There's no wood up there.
There's no wood, but, this is the closest thing I got. They have a history of having long-running shows in their theater, and so I'm hoping that our show is also a long-running show in that theater, and it's a really great theater. There's about 1,400 seats, maybe 13, less than 13. But it feels very intimate. There's an orchestra, there's a mezzanine, and that's it.
I love that lobby.
Oh, man.
The big lobby, it's like so grand.
It's like when you go to a theater, so it's part of the experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And how's your dressing room?
Man,
I'm sure you have a good dressing room.
I got
I mean,
that's really nice dressing room. Yeah. Apparently.
Was that like the Hugh Jackman dressing room?
Yeah, I was going to say
Boy
that.
From Oz?
He kind of tricked it out. So
nice.
I owe him like a bouquet of roses.
And wow.
Because what he did was, there are 3 dressing rooms on the first couple of floors. And because he's Hugh Jackman, he's like, I need 2 dressing rooms. So he knocked the wall down, and so now I have that dressing room.
What?
Yeah, man.
From TGI Fridays to the Hugh Jackman
to
dressing
room? To the Hugh Jackman dressing room.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You deserve it. We're going to talk more with Derrick Baskin after this break. Back with Derrick Baskin in the Hugh Jackman star dressing room at the Imperial Theater currently. I love it. I got to come check that place out.
Yeah, come on up, man.
You get comfortable in there because I don't think this show's going anywhere.
Well, I spend a lot of time in that theater, so it needs to be comfortable.
I want to talk about your other Broadway shows because you've done some great things I've loved in the past.
Yeah.
You made your debut in the original cast of the 25th annual, speaking of long titles,
I think maybe I have like a propensity
County
for like long
spelling bee.
Yeah.
I remember that guy Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch Mahoney.
I remember like, what's this guy up to? That was a fun role.
It was, a lot of deep plunging, open collared, purple silk shirts.
Yes.
A lot of chains. A little bit different than what I'm doing now, but only a little different because he's flashy and Otis is flashy too.
And how did you get that? That was your Broadway debut.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to remember when in the journey of that show did you sort of come into it?
So they had done in the Berkshires.
Right.
They had
there was an
done
early
something
version.
out there.
Right.
And then Bill Finn, who is the composer of the show. I mean, just a little name, Bill Finn.
He sat in that chair once. I was terrified. I love him.
Listen, he's kind of intimidating, but then you talk to him, he's still intimidating, but then you're like, okay, but I love him. Yeah. He handpicked me. It was interesting because was made, you know, you always go to the people you know first. So he was making offers for this particular role. He called everyone that he knew, and you know, we were going back to the Berkshires, and we're making like $2.50 a week, and no one wanted to take that job. And he called Norm Lewis at one time. Then Leah Delaria was on the list at one point.
For your role?
For my
Leah
role.
Delaria.
Yeah, yeah.
You're always up for the same parts.
Oh yeah, you know, it's the same type. And so, you know, he had made some calls and no one took it. So he's like, well, we have to have auditions. And they had 1 day of auditioning. My agent at the time got me in.
Wow.
And we were working with a different director at the time. And so Bill Finn was in the room with the creative, the artistic director down in the Berkshires. And after I sang, I'm singing my song. I sang from Smokey Joe's because that was my
because you were doing
first
it every
credit,
summer.
and I knew the song so well. I was like, oh, I'll just sing something from Smokey Joe's. I would start to sing this song, and I hear this chuckling, and he like, you know, Bill Finn, he does and he says what he feels in the moment, and he starts like just kind of chuckling. I was like, this guy's I either have him or I'm a complete joke right now, and I've never really been a joke to anyone, so I'm hoping that I actually have him. And he told me in that moment, he was like, I knew you were the guy. And after he picked me, he wrote the song that me, Lisa Howard, and Celia Keenan-Bolger sing, the I Love You song. He's like, I have someone now that can sing some of this music. And he wrote a couple of the songs after he cast me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many great people on that cast.
Oh man, that cast was ridiculous.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and it was 7 out of the 9 of us had our Broadway debut.
Wow. So going back to Spelling Bee for a minute, you ended up doing it for like 2 years, right?
Yeah, I did 2 contracts.
And then you went right into The Little Mermaid.
I had a week off, I had 2 weeks off, and then went right into Little Mermaid.
Which was like such a hot thing at the moment.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to get into Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
And you ended up spending like a year and a half at Little
About
Mermaid.
a year and a half.
And then it was like, no, Memphis is finally coming to Broadway.
Yeah.
And again, talk about like, and Ain't Too Proud is also a show that you've been doing for years. I mean, the first production was a couple years ago.
Yeah, 2017.
So it's interesting. These shows really, you know, when you land on Broadway in something,
Yeah.
you're like when you open on Broadway, you're like, we're ready.
Yeah.
We're ready. Memphis, I think you know, I love Memphis. I was a big fan of Memphis.
Oh, thanks, man.
And Memphis ended up being an amazing, you were Gator, of course.
Yeah.
Who didn't say much, but when he did, it was good.
Yeah.
It was a big moment when he did.
Yeah.
And it ended up going on to win Best. It was like the underdog show of that year, and it ended up winning Best Musical. And then you ended up spending many years in Memphis.
Just shy of 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, my Broadway runs have been, thank God, you know, they've been.
I mean, it was really one steady thing after the next.
It really has been. Yeah, it's been great.
And then, so how did you feel at the end of that? Because like we said, and I enjoyed you on the TV and that Difficult People show. That was a really funny show.
I had a really good time.
That was a really good show, and you were
really
fantastic on it. I remember I was very excited for you.
Yeah, it was working on that show was really cool because the people who created that show, they also really love theater. And so, you know, you would have a bunch of theater people flying through there, and it was really, really great. But after I closed Memphis, I was starting to get a bit jaded for musicals, you know, kind of lost my love for it. I think sometimes you just lose the appreciation for what you actually do if you don't think about how it touches people. And I kind of had lost touch with that. And so I was trying to just get out of musicals when this one came along. I was like, let's just do film and television. I hadn't done much of it, and it was a bit of a challenge for me. Yeah. So I was just like, let's kind of stretch yourself artistically. Let's stretch yourself as an actor, and let's see how this goes. And I was starting to have some success with that when Ain't Too Proud came. And I initially didn't really want to audition for it, but then my agent, he was like, but you haven't been seen in this particular light. You know, this is the lead of the show. You know, this guy is carrying the show. And you've never done that. The last show you were in, you played a mute. You had no lines. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this guy, you know, he has all the lines. He's in every scene. And it would be pretty cool to stretch yourself in that way. So I was like, okay. So then I looked at the script, and I didn't actually know if I was up for it. And that's when I knew I had to go in for it.
You were scared.
Because I was scared. Yeah, and so I was like, let's go in, let's challenge yourself, and let's continue to grow as an actor, as an artist. And so this show has stretched me in ways that I just have never been stretched before.
Well, I have to tell you, when I saw it out in LA, this show had a lot of hit runs before it got to Broadway, but when I saw it out in LA, I was just so proud and excited for you because I'm such a fan of yours. And I really was like, yes, you deserve this opportunity, and you're absolutely carrying the show. And you know, the thing about Broadway is there's so many talented people on Broadway.
For sure.
And there's so many talented people in the ensemble of Broadway shows who could easily carry their own show.
Absolutely.
But what happens with people's careers is that, you know, everyone gets on their own path. So did you ever just think maybe I'll never be the lead of a Broadway musical? I mean, you sometimes you just must wonder if that opportunity just won't happen.
I think so, you know. I think, you know, you wonder, and I've had a bunch of friends who've come into the business who are also now not in the business. And so you wonder, you know, well, what is my lifespan in this business? What will it be? Will I only be like the sidekick? Will I only play, you know, a featured role? And if that is your lot in this business, like, are you okay with that?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I would have been okay with it. Of course, I've always wanted to, you know, try to be, you know, a lead in a show. But had it not happened, being able to be a storyteller on a Broadway stage it's just a tremendous honor. So whether you're the lead in a show or whether you are in the ensemble, you know, the call on your life for that particular show is the same. You know what I mean? So the ensemble of our show, they are just ridiculously talented.
Yes.
3 of them could easily be me in the show, could be my part in the show. And so, you know, they are as important and as integral to telling this story as I am.
Well, I'm glad that Gator has so much to say now.
I mean,
Gator has a lot to say. Because in Memphis, you didn't say much, and now you're saying a lot.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's just so odd to do the exact opposite.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the exact opposite. I had 0 lines in Act 1. And in Act 2, I might have had 2 lines.
Yeah.
You know, and to go from that to have... I can't even count the lines at this point.
Well, I'm so thrilled for you. Everyone needs to go see Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations at the Imperial Theater. I'll be there often.
Come back, man.
And all those dads are going to be there, and moms and sisters and brothers. It's all good.
Whole families.
Everyone's there. Thank you so much, Derrick.
Thanks
Great
for
to
having
see
me,
you.
man. Yeah.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.